If you're applying to become a U.S. citizen through naturalization under Trump, here are 5 things you need to know, especially with immigration becoming more enforcement heavy day by day. First, your entire immigration history is fair game. Don't assume that your naturalization case is straightforward just because you've had your green card for many years. When you apply for naturalization, USCIS will review how you got your green card to begin with. Now, this has always been part of the process because you do have to show that you were lawfully admitted to be a permanent resident. But under this administration, the scrutiny is much higher. If there were any past mistakes, inconsistencies, or red flags, expect them to take a look at that. The new policy under this administration is to place people in removal proceedings if they're not approved with the immigration benefit that they're seeking before USCIS. So make sure you know your immigration history in and out. Second, USCIS is acting more like an enforcement agency these days. USCIS has obviously always been under the Department of Homeland Security, but under Trump in 2025, we're definitely seeing a shift towards enforcement more than adjudications. Officers, unfortunately, are not just adjudicators anymore, and they've been given directives to look to referring people to ICE. People are also being taken into custody at interviews. You usually mostly see this in cases where people have an outstanding removal order and are applying for a benefit before USCIS. But just today, we saw a Palestinian activist and student from Columbia University get detained by HSI agents while he was in the middle of his naturalization interview, despite having had his green card for 10 years. And this was because he spoke out against the genocide that's occurring against the Palestinian people by the Israeli government. And that's because we're seeing this trend in the government using a rarely revoked provision of the Immigration Nationality Act to detain people who have been using their right to free speech and instead are saying that these individuals are threats to foreign policy. Now, this is the only context that I've personally seen this in, but with Trump's mass deportation agenda, one would have to assume that this could happen to others, particularly people who apply for naturalization that may be removable for other things like criminal convictions. So if you have anything that you're worried about that might make you removable from the United States, it is really best to speak to an immigration lawyer before filing for naturalization. Also, if you've posted on social media politically, especially about foreign policy or international movements, know that the administration may be watching. USCIS now has a policy to screen applicants for immigration benefits for anti-Semitism. Now, although they say the policy applies to individuals who are students or those who are applying for green cards, things could certainly expand beyond that. Now, don't let your digital footprint stop you from applying for naturalization, but it's important to be strategic and stay informed. And fifth and finally, preparation is power. There's a lot that this administration is doing to scare people. They're dropping a new policy, a new rule, a new scare tactic every day. And honestly, they're not doing this because they can. They're doing this because they can't. They can't deport all of the people that they are trying to deport. They simply don't have the resources. They're trying to get you to do it for them by scaring you. So the most important thing is to make sure that you walk into your naturalization interview ready, be prepared, because that is when you're most powerful. Review your entire immigration file, talk to an attorney, especially if your green card was a complex case, and know your rights as well as the risks that could be associated with filing. And it may also be helpful to not go to an interview alone and go with a lawyer in case there are any complications. For more immigration news, tips, and information, feel free to give us a follow.